your body produces light inside of its cells. It does this in specifically a little part of the cell called the mitochondria. These are nicknamed the powerhouses of the cell because that's literally what they are. Most people think that their body produces energy by burning carbohydrates, just like your car produces, energy by burning gasoline. That's sort of true, but the reality is that the energy actually comes from the liberation of light from food. So just like, when your car is burning gasoline, there's a little explosion, right? And if you had that gasoline outside the car and you let it on fire, it would be bright. You would see light. Those are photons, right? Visually, you see light as camera vision, right? I see Steve and Gina. I see all these people's names on a screen, right? That's the visible spectrum of light. These patches deal with the infrared spectrum of light. They reflect a very specific frequency of light in the infrared range back into the body. And, I was very skeptical of this in part because it seemed like a really tall order for a patch like this to reflect a very specific frequency back into the body to do this. I would have thought that I could have gotten the same results with sunlight, a therapeutic lamp, or light phototherapy device. Many of these things are out there, but I have used a lot of those devices, and I have not been able to. I'll give you a great example. One of the most compelling testimonials I've ever gotten came in recently. It was a woman who suffered you know what? I actually have it up here. I'm going to just go ahead and read it. Yeah, so, she had a very significant scar in her abdomen that is 2 to 3 inches below her belly button and went hip to hip. She actually talked to me yesterday about this, and it wasn't just hip to hip. It actually extended around her flank, all the way around to her back. And I got confused by her description that she typed because it makes it sound like it's a visible scar. This was scar tissue that was deep inside the body. And she described it as being like a rope, like the size of her pinky finger. It was caused by a horse kicked her with both feet from only a couple feet behind her, and she got slammed into a barn wall. So she took all the power of that kick, and that generated that scar tissue. That was 3 years ago. She had tried all kinds of things to decrease it, from massage to proteolytic enzymes to, she doesn't mention light therapy here, but the funny thing is that she works for a group that teaches about light therapy. So I'm sure she's tried it. If she hasn't, I'd be shocked. But anyway, finally, she started the X39 patches 12 days ago, and it's 75% gone. She can't find remnants when she searches deeply. And she thought at first it started decreasing after the first day, and she thought she was crazy. But then she's seen that. And when I talked to her, I think a couple of days after she submitted this, she said it was completely gone. So I've never seen that. I recommend people do sauna. People buy therapeutic lights through my friends who are distributors all the time. I don't get testimonials like this. I don't have patients coming back telling me about stories like this. The elbow pain story is another one. I mean, I got a testimonial a few weeks ago, a lady who grew her eyebrows back. There are things I do that are where we get great results. We get results like this, but I don't have anything that I do that's this just plug and play. Give everyone this patch, maybe they'll get this amazing outcome. Everything else has to be tailored to them. So that was what got my attention. And these are things that, for the skeptics out there who are wondering, well, what about the placebo effect? In the integrative world, we work with the placebo effect all the time, because everything that we do is sort of enrolling the patient to work on getting well. And that induces the placebo effect. Yeah. Somebody just getting on a Zoom call with me has some placebo effect. And I have seen a lot of people get better and respond to placebos. I've never seen anybody do this stuff with placebos. Yeah. So, placebo complicates everything that we do, and that's okay. But this is very different. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was kind of X39. Yeah. No, that's incredible. The stuff you're saying now, again, I have this question for you, but it's kind of like, after you just mentioned that, why even ask the question? But let them have it. All right. From a doctor, from what you've seen, why should you highly recommend, why do you highly recommend this device for every single person, the X39 that's out there? Why would you recommend it? Even if they see maybe they're not getting a result, like that could be something like, tell them what's going on in their body with what is happening with this,
Right.
this X39.
So the light being reflected back into the body by the patch is upregulating the production of something called GHK-Cu, copper peptide. We're just going to call that copper peptide. It's a lot easier. In reality, there's lots of these peptides. Peptides are small proteins. And I want you to think about peptides and proteins as being like the machinery that gets the work of life done. You have a toaster oven, you have a blender, you have a microwave oven, you have a number of tools in your kitchen, and you put them together to make food, right? Your body's not any different. It just uses proteins and peptides to get it done. So one of the big problems people today face, and I have a lot of content on about this because I am really passionate about it. We are actually in the midst of an epidemic of people having too much copper, but copper is a little bit like a loaded gun. There's nothing wrong with a loaded gun. You just need to have it pointed in the right direction, right? And you need to be very comfortable that what you're pointing it at could be obliterated, right? So that's a really important concept for people to get, because what's happening in our modern world is that copper is getting unbound and it's working out of control. And when it does that, it creates what we call oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is synonymous with aging when it's present in excess. So if you look at the literature on heart disease, if you look at the literature on dementia, if you look at the literature on every kind of degenerative illness that we're dealing with today, they're linked back to excess copper in the body that's not bound to peptides and proteins. And I give you that long explanation because it's really important for people to not come away from this thinking copper bad. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Unbound free copper is like a big liability. It can create what I like to call metabolic mayhem. And this peptide, GHK-Cu, binds copper. What does it do once it's bound copper? It gets to work. And it's one of our primary or most important and most powerful biomolecules or responses to stress, injury, decay. And what it does is essentially runs around the body, turning on the processes of rejuvenation and healing, which is why we get, and this is, I think, one of the things that people, it's tough to wrap your mind around, right? Most of you are used to thinking, I feel nausea, I take this. I feel headache, I take aspirin. I feel knee pain, I take Tylenol. And one of the spooky things about the patches and the things that's kind of tough to wrap your mind around is, well, this seems like it's good for everything. That sounds too good to be true. There must be some kind of catch. What is it actually for? I'm waiting for you to tell me, no, it's really just for joint pain. It's not, okay? Because copper has this effect all over the body. There's copper in your joints. There's copper in your gut. There's copper in your brain. There's copper in your skin. There's copper in your kidneys, liver, heart. It's everywhere, right? Why is it everywhere, by the way? It actually is essential for your body to create energy, right? Which is why if there's one thing that people will tell me about the LifeWave patches that's most consistent, is that their energy is better, right? And so that's what's happening on a molecular level. Now, to be more specific, the peptide will reset genes in your body to a more youthful state. This is one reason why I recently got this question from someone. They asked if this would potentially, because it turns on stem cells, right? And for those of you who don't know, stem cells, cancer comes from stem cells that have gone rogue. And they've asked me, do you think this could create a problem with, reactivating cancers? I have friends who don't want to try it because they're worried about that. Well, we know very, very well from the photobiomodulation literature, the light therapy literature, that exposing people to red and infrared light does not make cancer worse. If anything, it helps these rogue cells and stem cells get back on track and be more what they're supposed to be. Now, we still don't know exactly how well it may be used to treat cancer, but, give them 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, they'll figure it out. In the meantime, this works really well, and no, it won't upregulate or cause an increased risk of cancer. It only,
yes,
yeah, right. It only causes the body to go back more into this youthful state. And it's, people have probably never heard this before, but there really is an epidemic today of excess copper. It's It's largely being driven by the fact that there's 270,000 metric tons of copper sulfate being sprayed on our food. And that's something like 60 milligrams for every person in the world per day. And yes, much of that washes off the food, but it also concentrates in the soil. And a lot of this, by the way, if you're on here and you're thinking, well, I don't really need to worry about that, I eat organic. Turns out copper sulfate's used more in the organic industry because it's organic. It's approved organic by the USDA. So we see copper toxicity all the time. The more copper toxic somebody is, the more confident I am that LifeWave is going to help them. And yeah,